All right, so it says we are live on YouTube.
Thank you, Christy. Welcome to everyone. This is our special meeting of the Committee of the Whole, March the 8th. We're being live streamed electronically, so welcome to any public that's listening. Hopefully we have some. I do have a motion. It was moved by Jeff Carroll. It's seconded by Karen Jennings, that the special meeting of Committee of the Whole agenda dated March the 8th, 2022 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I'll also remind all of council that if you do have any disclosure of interest, you can declare it now or anytime during the meeting. Tonight, we have no minutes there. And also tonight, we have one delegation, and we're happy to have Ross McMurtry, who is the chair of the Montague Police Service Board. Ross is going to be giving us some information on the Black Cat radar to help control speed. So with that, I'm going to pass this part on to you, Ross, and if you can come back onto the screen. And so welcome. Thank you, Ross. So welcome for doing the delegation.
Okay, shall I proceed?
Yep, you're on.
All right, a little background here. I'm the chair of the Montague Police Services Board, and we've been discussing for a while a way to better handle speeding and speeding. Put together a presentation that I presented to the Lanark Police Services Board, and little did I know that everyone else had their own ideas, so it went over really well. Actually, at least one other township has already bought these devices, found them very good, and the OPP like it too. So in essence, what we're doing is we're giving better tools for the township and for the OPP to solve these speeding problems. Christy, can you put that up, or do I need to?
Just give me 1 second.
And Ross, I should mention too that we do generally 10 minutes for our delegations.
I'm usually quite brief. I may take video off because I'm having a connection problem, but let me know if you can't understand.
And council, we've also received your copy of the presentation.
Okay, I could just speak to the paperwork if everyone has that.
I have it in front of me. I believe that we all should have it in front of us. So Christy, if you're having some problems, maybe we can just go ahead on. We have it. Okay. I think most of us have it in front of us, and if you get it on, then you can just put it on the screen.
Okay. Okay. The first page is just a shot of the Black Cat radar. It's a box. It is easy to carry around. It can get power from a couple of sources, but quite often it's attached to a pole or a post. And as you can see, the box is quite secure. Now, it's non-intrusive. It can sit in the side of the road. Most people won't even notice it. It's not like a big iron contraption. It's easy to put on and take off. What it does is It's not like one of those speed signs that flashes your speed. It captures speed, it captures volume, it captures vehicle length, and other information, which is we can then upload without having to actually visit the site. You can see some of the specs there. Easy data retrieval via Bluetooth or modem. And other people have already been using this, including the RCMP, the OPP, and even, I think it was Lanark Highlands that have one. Page 3, this shows it. So as you can see, it's pretty discreet, it's pretty secure. It's easy to use, and to tell you the truth from the Works Department point of view, all they have to do really is turn it on, and away we go. And that's what the next page speaks to. It's really well thought out, and they haven't had any issues with vandalism or theft. They said looks like somebody tried to beat it up with a baseball bat, but they still didn't get into it. They might have destroyed it, but they didn't get into it. So we can also install these a little above the regular height. It really doesn't matter. Now, Montague recently passed a new speeding report bylaw. And it states that we're taking information from some discrete unit. Well, this is the discrete unit. So without it, we really can't fulfill that obligation. And what we found out was with Lanark liking this idea, and one person already using it, and the OPP recommending it, I've asked the Stacy to do a quick survey. And it turns out that if we buy one, there are other townships that will buy product that add up to 6. That's, I think the next page is price. Oops, sorry. The next page just tells you about what it can do more. So it gives you information in size. You know, if there's big trucks going down a road, they shouldn't be going down. Snowmobiles, if they shouldn't be around. Regular vehicles. But it does not photograph license plates. It does not do anything that violates privacy issues. It counts and records. One of the things with the OPP, or even ourselves as we handle these issues now, is we call up the OPP and we say, we've got a complaint in Ford Road, somebody going this fast. And their only solution is to put a $50,000 cruiser out there with a $100,000 police officer who will probably see nothing. And in essence, we give a very expensive sign that says, hey, we heard you, we tried, but in essence, that's pretty feeble. What we can do is put this up. We can also let local people know that it's there on the road. We can move it around to different roads. The police will be able to see the information, and we can say, look, on Ford Road between 5 and 7, there's a large amount of speeders over a certain percentage point. And we can then put a resource there that is going to be much better used. And we can also answer citizens' requests. In other words, somebody says, hey, I got people ramming by my place at ridiculous speeds and dust and stones. Sitting on your front yard, sometimes people seem to be going faster than they are. And if the data shows that, then we can take that to our citizen and show them that this actually isn't true. It's it's country living. Other than that, we use your process. Now, the last page is price. So that's what the price is for one. And really right now, they're just saying hang on a minute. Okay, if we get 6 units, we can get $300 off per unit. So that's why we're trying to get all the different townships together. And right now we have Beckwith with 1, Lanark Highlands with 1, Mississippi Mills wants 2, Tay Valley want 1, and we want 1. So there's 6. All I need is for this to be put into the budgets so we actually have the money to pay when the time comes. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Ross. I'll go to, thanks, Ross, then for that great presentation. It's simple and it's very good. And I remember, I think this is about the 3rd time I've heard this report now, but it's pretty clear to me every time I hear it. But I thought, as I recall, when we first heard about these machines, they were $6,000, I thought, and then it dropped down, and then we found out that, as you said, that if we bought 6, we get a discount. So that's good. So I would like to go to council. If you have any questions, please. And I did see one hand, and that is Claus first, then Jeff and Karen. So Claus, please.
Okay, thanks, Reeve. Thanks for the presentation, Ross. Very interesting. Just a quick question. What is the orange kit?
These are simply add-on software add-ons that are needed for proper operation. For some of the added features. In other words, we want this thing to be fully operational, so we want the full software package. And
that's the same as
that.
Same as the DRU, whatever that stands for.
You know, I don't know what that stands for. So I could look into that for you, Klaus.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, please.
Yeah, real quick, I guess like we have a unit right now that that seems to work pretty well as far as telling us our speeds, gives us obviously the radar detection, does the traffic counting. I'm just wondering, is it, and I don't know I can't remember what the cost is. I thought about the same price, and I'm wondering, is it best for us to go with something like this or to another device that is the same as that we have right now? So we have 2 different devices, and I don't know if we know the cost difference or not, but what's the advantage, I guess, is my one is from this one over the one that we currently have.
I talked to Works, and they tell me that they do have that machine, that it's over 2 years old, and they haven't used it in 2 years. Stephen, is that you? Did I misrepresent you? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. I could speak to that. It is 2 years old, but it's heavily used over these 2 years. I'll counsel on that for sure. We do use it a lot, for sure. It's very similar operational to this Black Cat for sure. The one added feature I'd say this has is the vehicle length, which definitely would be an asset to have. Public Works has received numerous calls on certain roads that there's, certain trucks going down the road at a certain speed. So having the length would kind of verify whether it's a dump truck or transport, and road classification can be used as a tool for the length of the vehicle as well. So That's the one difference there, but we do have a feature on our existing board that will let us have it on a discrete monitoring, and that doesn't display anything and collects the same data as the Black Cat.
So maybe just a quick
Okay.
follow-up, if you don't mind, Reeve.
Yes, go ahead, Jeff, please.
So Steve, since you bring up the vehicle length, the current one we have doesn't do that, but you're saying that could be an added benefit. So I guess from that side of it, it would be an advantage to have one of each instead of having two of the same.
That's correct.
That's what your opinion. Okay, thank you. That's good. Thank you. Thanks, Ross, too, as well.
And when we've questioned the police on the same issue there, Jeff, we've and all of council, we've certainly found from the police that they were reporting that this device is, if they were to prefer one, definitely this device. But I also concur, I think it would be fantastic to be able to have each device. Obviously, we have them in two different areas at the same time we can of the township also. So I'll go to Karen, please.
So a couple questions. In reading through and then when Ross was speaking, it sounds like the OPP get the data from this, not the municipality, but the municipality owns the piece of equipment.
We both get the data. Exactly how and who will be collecting that has yet to be decided. But we have a Lanark meeting coming up in the next few days. And I'll be looking for input on what would be best or what would be desired. So if you have input, please let me know.
And then the second component says the OPP Community Safety Program, Tax Pro of 1,600 and training of 750. Those fees are included in the above fees for pricing?
Correct.
Okay. That's good, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ian, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I guess my question is for Mr. Rothwell. I'm just wondering, do we need another unit?
That's a great question, Councillor. It would definitely be an asset for Public Works to have the additional one. In the previous policy that was spoken about tonight with the speeding complaint one, that can tie up quite a bit of time on the one machine. So if we did have a second one for traffic counts and even vehicle lengths, that's a huge asset that we could keep on our other municipal roadways and collect that data that we're always looking for. So it would be an asset to have the second unit for sure.
All right, thanks. Thank you, sir.
And if I can also speak to that, part of our Lanark discussion is the ability to share. So if ours goes down, we can hopefully borrow another township's or group them in some manner. So we are looking at that to give us better reliability. And finally, Zone 2, which is Eastern Ontario Police Services Board, has asked me to present the same thing to them because they like it and they think they may go with this too on a wider scale. And being interchangeable and part of the using the same equipment just makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Ross. I don't see any other questions and comments. And as it was said, if you recall, as it was said at our Police Service Board meeting, if we expect the police to do their job enforcing and to be successful, they need this. It certainly would help to have this tool. And so thank you for the report. And the next part of our meeting tonight is going to be total budget, and it is in our budget. So we'll be discussing it possibly when we come to it, but it is in our budget as we speak right now, which is it has not obviously been approved yet. So Steve, I'm going to go to you, please.
Yeah, just one little thing to add for Ross for comparison is I did receive a quote for our existing unit just to compare, and it was in the $5,000 range as well. So it's comparative numbers to have.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll
Okay.
sign off and let you get on.
Oh, yeah, we have a resolution first, Ross. So thank you. We have a resolution here was moved by Karen Jennings and seconded by Ian Straight that the committee of the whole received the following delegation from the Montague Police Service Board, Ross McMurtry, on the Black Cat radar for information. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So thank you then, Ross. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye now.
The next report of our municipal officer is going to be yours, Andrew, on our second draft of the 2022 budget. And before you begin, Andrew, I'll just ask you if this is okay. If you wanted to, do you want to speak just to the general notes first? And then we'll go back to the budget part of the meeting and go through each one at a time. How would you like to do this?
Yes, thanks, Reeve Dobson. That is exactly how I would like to proceed. So I would like to first take a few minutes to go through some notes as you suggested, and then we could work from there through each of the different departments that are listed under the discussion section of the report.
Okay.
And look at different points along the way and any possible changes we may want to make working towards our final version of the budget.
I'm also wondering if you didn't mind when you're going through the budget, if you see, if we come onto a place where there had been a question, if you can kind of just highlight that. Maybe that's what you're planning on doing anyways, but then each person who had questions will know that it's been taken care of. So if you don't mind highlighting that as you go along. So thank you.
All right.
So over to you then.
All right, thanks very much. So this is our second draft for looking at our budget for 2022. And as I noted in the report, we're working towards hoping to be able to come out of this meeting so that I could bring something to the April 5th, 2022 council meeting that we could look to approve for the 2022 budget. So we made some updates from the first draft of the budget, and we'll go through those this evening. I'll sort of start with a bit of different numbers here that provide a bit of background. I believe that this is what some of the councillors were wondering, and gives us a bit of context as to decisions that might be made tonight. So I'll kind of read through a couple notes here. One of the questions was if we know what sort of tax rates are being approved around the county. So for 2022, Lanark County has passed their budget and their increase was 2.3% for 2022. Carleton Place, they've passed theirs. Theirs is 1.97% increase in their tax rate. The town of Smiths Falls, they've actually passed their budget this year with a 0% tax increase for their tax rate. And Drummond North Elmsley, they've approved theirs with a 3% increase to their tax rate. And Tay Valley, they've approved theirs with an increase of 3.42%. And Mississippi Mills has approved theirs with a 3% increase. So that gives a bit of an idea that I believe in Lanark County, there's recognition of the effect of inflation that's been occurring kind of throughout COVID and with different economic factors that are playing out. And then for a little bit more background, if we look at Montague's tax rate, the tax rate that was set by Montague in 2016, it remained at that rate for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and again in 2020. So there was a 0% tax increase for each of those 5 years in Montague. And then for last year, looking at the budget, we decided to go with a 1.5% increase to the tax rate. So that was for 2021. Now, if we, another question that would have been asked was, how does this affect a tax bill for 2022? So if we take the difference from the roll that we get, the assessment roll from MPAC that provides the value of all the properties for the township, if we had to use the same tax rate as last year, versus the 2% increase we're suggesting, there would have been almost $64,000 less in revenue than what's showing here now. So per $100,000 of assessed value on property, what you're looking at with a 2% increase is like a $14.63 increase per 100,000 in assessed value. So on a $300,000 home, you'd be looking at an increase of the municipal portion of their tax bill by $43.89 compared to the year before. And another piece of information that we received from MPAC is the median value of single detached family dwellings in the township is $235,000 in Montague. So with this, the increase proposed here, then on a house of that value, the increase from year over year would be $34.38. So gives a bit of an idea of the municipal increase that we're looking at there based on 2%. So from there, that sort of leads into the notes at the beginning of the report about the 2% increase of the tax rate for 2022. We've already heard about the recommendation from the Police Services Board for the Black Cat unit, which we have budgeted in at $5,000 that you would not have seen in the first draft of the budget. Something that could be decided on this evening. And another question I've made note of in the report is it was asked at the first meeting was the difference in the value of the public works storage building from a coverall style building to a steel building, which would be about $200,000 for the coverall style and then closer to $400,000 for a steel building. So we'll come to that when we get to the public works department. And we show a salary grid that reflects our bylaw 3.6. No, I should have updated that. Our new bylaw number, which is in the report, I put the previous one, 36302017. It's actually now 3807-2021. So that's where that comes from. We've been confirmed from the town of Smiths Falls that the water and sewer budget that they passed had a 2% increase. So that's reflected in the water and sewer department. And I guess just the thought as we go through this is that we're looking at a budget to provide the services of the township throughout the year. We also look back at the year before, but really we're looking at a future projection for a plan for 2022 to implement those services. And as I said, I hope that the goal of this evening's meeting is to make note of any changes that are provided by council, so we can bring those back at the April 5th council meeting, hopefully to pass our budget. So from there, we could probably start into the different departments that are the attachments to that report. And the first section is revenue, which I believe that very first line of municipal levy is the one I started out talking about, which shows a 2% increase. And there were a couple questions from the last meeting. I'll just grab those here. One was I think about the municipal levy supplementals, and the question was, what was happening there year to date. And I guess if we look at, that was in regards to the previous year, 2021. So if you look at that, there was a supplemental amount of $47,502. And the amount that we budget each year is more around combined to the $35,000 mark. And then if we go over that, then that's extra revenue. So that's why we're a little conservative there. That was one of the questions. Another question was for account 110-135-4010. That was that one. Next one was about 110-135-4025, which was the payment in lieu of taxes for the Gallipo Center. And there was a question of, is there growth there or has it remained stable? And it does remain relatively stable. There is small changes each year, but we've budgeted the same amount for 2022 of 145,000 for the Gallipo Center revenue. There was a question about the next one, 110-140-4080, the OMPF, Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund revenue, as to whether that's an automatic payment that the township receives each year, which it does. So this year it will be $332,100. There was a question about $110-150-5046, which is OPP record checks. So we have decreased that line. I don't see a lot of revenue happening there. And then 110-150-5079. There was a question of if that line was up to date, and the answer would have been yes for that question. So I think I've covered off the notes from that previous budget meeting for that section, and I was just wondering now if there's any questions from council.
Yes, Karen, please.
At the start, under taxation, so the 110-125-4010 municipal levy write-off, we had no write-offs last year for our budget at all?
There were some, but they didn't get coded to that particular line. So they would probably blend it into the line above, the 47,502. So that's like a net number.
Yes,
Also,
Karen?
so when you have it as 2021 actual, that is now actually all revenue and expenses accounted for till the end of 2021? Unaudited, of course, but.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so all the adjustments that we receive have been made for that.
Yes, Karen?
The next one is the 110-150-5070, the POA. We've only got $275. We've dropped it to 8,000. Are we truly expecting more to come in? Because I know at one point they had been behind in getting the money through. But are we expecting, because that's a huge drop?
Yeah, actually, sorry, I should mention that that's a line where the 8,000 is closer to the actual amount, but we were using the credits that they show up as a credit in our police billing, and we were applying them against our OPP billing in the other sections. So I have to adjust those back so that you will see an actual number there that's closer to the $8,000 number when we finish our year-end statement.
And then follow up.
Mhm.
So with reference to the lottery licenses, and I recognize that COVID has put a lot out for anybody that was getting those. In the previous years, did we come close to the 2,000? Because I thought that number had also dropped previous years. Like before COVID, if you looked at like 17, 18, 19 for more realistic, maybe? Because I know COVID hit at 19 though, so maybe 17 or 18.
Yes, in 2019.
Sorry.
In 2019, we were just short of 3,000, which is kind of an average. So
That's good.
it would be nice to see us return to that if things return more to normal.
That's perfect. Thank you.
And a comment that I would like to make, Andrew, and council, is on this, at least on this first page, what you're reporting, and that's under the provincial grants. Like, I don't think that we should assume that we're going to continue getting those OMPS funding, at least not at that level. I'm assuming that that's not going to continue. I'm not saying it's going to change maybe in the next year, but I have heard rumblings that may be changing, and it may not be in our favor. So that's a considerable amount of money that we're able to operate and sustain ourselves with. And if that ever started going down, then it would certainly impact us. I just wanted to make that comment that we should keep that in mind, that that's not something that that we should assume is going to go on forever. Okay, I see no other questions, Andrew, so if we can go on then to the next page, under expenditures, I guess.
Yes, so the next one is for council. And there were a few questions there. First one probably goes to the cost of living increase that's been noted, which we could probably circle back to that in just a moment once we review through here. There was a question also about the insurance. The insurance rates, they are now confirmed and invoiced for 2022. They do go by the calendar year. And the rate that the township saw increase for 2022 was 4.77%, which is fairly in line with inflation, and based on what the insurance market is showing, our insurance provider and representative feels that that is a pretty preferential amount for 2022. So that's the confirmed insurance amount. And then in the first draft, we made some changes to some of the conference and training accounts. And I think I did increase a couple of those back up a little bit so that there was room there for conferences and things like that and training as they might come along. And I think there was a question about why we budget for miscellaneous accounts. And I think that's probably pretty common in most chart of accounts that you have a miscellaneous line. We tend to have one for each department here at the township, and we don't put a lot in there. And that really is so that when we see something that's unexpected or out of the ordinary and we post it there, that it will stand out and get questioned and reviewed as the year goes on. So if it's something that we want to take a closer look at, it's kind of like a check and balance. And reminds us, why we had some extra costs that might show up. So we have those in there. And the council special circumstances, it's budgeted at the same amount as prior year. And that was typically the volunteer and staff appreciation night comes out of there, the $3,500. And I think that might be the questions that were asked. Is there any other questions?
Yes, Karen?
Just on the 190, 210, 60, 210, the benefit costs, I'll call them. We don't really have any group benefits. So 2% is what our increase for receiver general and employer health taxes this year.
Yeah, I put a bit in there for inflation. It's there was nothing in there for benefits. But there is the like the source deductions that do occur there. So that's what that is. The township portion.
Jeff?
In case I missed this, but for the COLA for the wages side of it, is there other municipalities that sorry to pop this one on you, but that follow COLA but are not following it this year with their percentages?
Yeah, that does happen, and that is a couple other notes I have here. It's probably a good time to go over them. I'll just give you a quick review of what I have here, and then we'll kind of lead into answering that question. So where are we here? So if you look at, there was a collective agreement that the county and Tay Valley and Perth are part of. And I believe, so their increase is 1.75%. I looked at Carleton Place, their increase is 2%. And I believe I may be incorrect, but I believe Lanark Highlands may have not followed COLA this year. I think they may have went with a lower amount. I believe was a note I saw from a treasurer's chain email there. Knowing that the cost of living benchmark that's used is at 4.9 based on, and it's October to October, all items Ontario, and we use Stats Can info for that. So council could use their discretion to change that amount, but it would be different than the personnel policy that they have in place. And what that's really affecting is your overall salary grid, which gives you your bottom and top amount of your pay band for positions. And the thing about keeping that going with the cost of living, of course, is that as you're looking to attract or retain staff, it's good to keep pace with the cost of living so that it looks like a competitive place to when you advertise for positions to hire. So.
Were you finished there for now, Jeff?
I guess if I could make a comment, because I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate the info too, as well as far as the percentage go around. I mean, we are in a bit of it's obviously a wonky time and a wonky where, I mean, I don't think, and that's why I asked that question, who's following it, because I don't think anybody's throwing out that type of percentage, recognizing the year. And I think we're maybe seeing that around too as well, that most are trying to stick around that 2% one that keeps things into a proper line. But I'm curious what other people think too as well along that note.
Okay, I have two. I have Karen, and then I have Claus, and then I have Ian. So Karen, you first.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that the others were equal to a COLA, but more so like a collective agreement is a union negotiated. With Carleton Place being a non-union, that was actually set when the current council came into place, and they set the raise for the 4 years term that they were in, providing 2% for every year, which is new to them as well, but that's now they're going to be their standard, so that there's no guessing. It's set the same as, say, for example, a collective agreement. A collective agreement could be set for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever, and it is in there so that you then know. And that's the thing is, so I was sort of trying to obtain from our website what our increases had been from 18, 19, 20, because I certainly remember 19, I think, was 2.4, 20 was 2.4, 21 was 0.49 maybe. And then, but I didn't know what 2018 was, because I know in 17, the council brought in the new compensation grid, which then in turn changed the rates from before. But that's where I couldn't get it to try and figure out what was an average of what the increases were to be fair for staff. Because I agree, I don't want the salary range being held, because you need to be competitive to try and keep staff. I don't agree with our personnel policy saying COLA, because of the fact that I'm old enough to remember where COLA at some times was like a 12%. So I think it needs to be a fair review of our comparables every year to ensure that our staff are being treated equal to our comparable municipalities in Lanark County, and maybe even bordering Leeds Grenville as well. So I think it's something that we should be looking at that way versus being linked to COLA.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Claus, next, please.
Thank you, Rafe. I go back to Councillor Carroll's comments that the 4% to me, I think, is a little high, considering most townships around are not going to that extreme. I'd like to see us drop back to 2% or maybe even less. But I think 4% is just a little too hefty.
Okay, Ian, please.
Yeah, I think that Claus and Bill should hopefully remember the reason why we put that policy in place was so that we didn't. So the first year of council I was on, we did either 2 or 3 pay reviews where we paid outside agencies to come in and do a study to look at what our pay schedule was. I'm pretty sure they were $15,000 or $20,000 to have them all done each time. So we put that in place to make sure that the wage bracket, the bracket itself always went up as per COLA. Where when the policy got written, the policy was supposed to state that it was up to council's discretion whether or not that raise was at the COLA level. So the bracket always goes up as per COLA, as per inflation, but it should be up to council's discretion as to how much of a raise gets added or out of that percentage, staying within the bracket, if that makes sense.
Right,
Yep.
and now I did see your hand again, Karen.
Yeah, so I mean, with reference to the 2% or whatever, if I couldn't do it because, as I said, I didn't know the rate, but I said, okay, so if 2018 was a 2%, 19 was 2.4, 20 was 2.4, and 21 was only a 0.49 type thing, average that over 4 years to figure out if it was a 2% every year, then I was looking at this year being like a 2 point whatever to bring it up so that every year they would have gotten 2%. Because again, I want to try and be fair so that our staff are remaining competitive, salary grids type thing within our area. And that's why I was doing an average looking to see what would we need for this year to make it equal over the other years that maybe it was out of alignment to some of the other municipalities.
Okay, yes, Ian?
I'm personally okay with the COLA amount that Andrew has being applied to the wage bracket, but the actual wage itself being at 2%. So that the wage bracket doesn't fall behind. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So if you have the guy that's out front and he's shoveling snow, as an example, or whatever we want to call it, cutting the lawn, whatever it would be. Maybe he makes the wage range is $10 to $20. That's the bracket he fits, he slides in. He can't exceed $20. It starts at 10, whatever it might be at the end of the day. The 4% goes up on that wage bracket, so it goes up to like $22, but he only gets a 2% increase. So the bracket always stays competitive. So if we go to hire someone, we don't want to be able to have to readjust it.
Okay, so in a case like this now, Andrew, do you prefer us to make a change now, or should we red flag this till the end and then go through the red flagged items, or what? Or if council wants to put a proposal into the agenda, that we can deal with it now. What's your preference there?
I think it would be a good idea to make that decision this evening. Whether you just, I guess then the question would be whether you'd like to make that decision now or maybe, at the end of the budget discussion.
Okay. Well, I see two hands up there. So Claus and then Ian, please.
I agree with Andrew. I think we should make that decision now and move forward. And I'm suggesting that we make the increase at 2%.
And
See where
Ian,
that
I'll
goes.
go to you. You had your hand up also.
And I agree with what Claus is saying. I think we should make the decision right now. I agree with the 2% for sure. But I'd like to see the bracket increased by the full COLA amount.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
have a problem with that.
So I'm going to go around then. I think we usually can do this fairly efficiently, Andrew, in a case like this. I just go around and get consensus then, okay?
Sure.
So I've got consensus from two already. So Jeff, you're on next, and then to Karen.
Yeah. I'll go along with because we're kind of combining both the council one right now with the other staff one too as well, right? Like, is that the
Yeah.
originally? Okay, so that's the idea? Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'll still go along with that though. Yeah.
Okay, and Karen.
So for council, it won't be COLA, it'll be 2% because we don't have ranges. And then for all of staff, the grid itself is going to go up COLA, but staff increases are only going to be the 2%.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So then you've got that change then, Andrew.
All right, thank you.
Now, back to any other questions on this page, or will you finish this page?
Yeah, I believe I believe unless the council has any other questions, then I'm done that page.
Okay, any questions? I don't see any other questions in. So going to go on to the next, and that's the, the statement of revenues and expenses.
Yeah, so this one is administration, and so we have at the top here, we have the different revenues, and the first line there was a question about getting all the funding expected in last year and why there's a difference. And so the answer to that would be the amount we did receive last year, the 48,766 at the top there in the middle. That was money we received for COVID funding for 2021. The difference of the 100,000, that was the amount of the grant that we were trying to utilize for the roof repair, which the roof repair ended up being priced that it was closer to a $400,000 repair that was decided not to proceed with. So at this point, there was a decision to do a less expensive roof repair due to the timing of the contractor. That's been moved into 2022. So you see there, we've applied for that grant to be rescoped to cover that repair, and that's that amount that's there for the 40,000. So we're looking to follow up on that into 2022. The next line is under administration miscellaneous revenue, and the amount you see there is from the SCBA, and what that is the fire needed SCBAs, and so that money is coming back to the administration department from the fire department. And this is the last year you'll see that, and that will complete that. So that money also down farther at the end of this department, it's a transfer to reserve. So it goes from fire to here, and then from here it transfers to the admin reserve. So that's the second line down. Tax certificates, we budgeted the same as the year before, 5,000. We stayed conservative, even though we had a larger number of tax certificates that people had paid for in 2021. The next line is showing money that we would bring in from reserves. So there's two amounts there. There's one amount that is for the 2022 municipal election that'll be occurring, and that's an $18,000 amount. And then the other amount that we have there at the moment is $50,000. So that makes up the 68,000 coming in from reserves. The 50,000 is so we have a resource there to continue following up after the feasibility study on the municipal complex, and to look at next steps that we can continue to get more shovel ready there and explore other sources of funding. I've put that resource in, so it's already there. What I would foresee is this council has a future meeting, makes more decisions, then that would be something that they could utilize if they want to do more architectural advancement of that plan or more engineering. So that's the amount I have coming in there. Then down under capital, you'll see where we have those amounts going back out as capital expenditures. So the 90,000 is made up of the $40,000 for the roof and the $50,000 for possible municipal complex planning and whatnot. Some of the questions from the first meeting were, did we have enough money for conferences? And the answer is yes, I believe that there's enough there. If conferences kind of come back to in person, that's what those expenses were for, and they haven't really been used during COVID. So we've left a more conservative amount there, but there's still enough there if there's any in-person conferences are worth attending in 2022. The next question was about for 193-210-7124, which is administration postage. And the question was, have we been saving money due to e-billings? And yes, we have reduced the postage amount, starting to show some savings from e-billings. And we just did the interim tax billing for a date of March 1st. We've been working on that last week and sent those out. And we sent out, I think it was a little over 150 e-notices by email that we don't have to send out by traditional postage. So people get those quicker and at a lesser cost. So, and we continue to add to that emailing list to improve that constantly. So we keep working away on that. There was a question about advertising being a little high in 2021, but just based on the activities and the requirement to advertise, it did go a little over budget, but that's to follow policy and doing those things. Contracted services last year was 57,500, and now we've moved it back down to 7,500. The reason for that is last year we had 50,000 in there for a feasibility study, and we won't have to conduct that again this year. So that's been taken out of that line. And oops. There was a question about 193-210-7308, which is memberships, and is if there is enough money there, and there is, to cover memberships. 193-210-7380, which is training and seminars, and we have money there for training that covers like AMCTO training and things like that. The next one is a question about admin health and safety being remaining at 5,000, even though there wasn't a lot spent there in 2021. And we do like to leave that there because as we continue to work on health and safety, that line will also and can include things like signage and things that might come up from health and safety. So we want to make sure we have enough there to address any health and safety specific issues. And there was a question about 193-210-7100. And the question was, what is a miscellaneous expense there? So once again, that's what started out as a miscellaneous account. It's actually been modified to have supplies for the municipal building. So it covers things like rugs, the alarm system, cleaning supplies, different things related to the facility. There's a question about decreasing 193-210-7104, which is for repairs and maintenance of the municipal complex. So we did reduce that a bit, and I believe that should be fine. And then there was a question about the transfer to reserves, which is made up of $20,000 for admin, $27,000 for SCBA, which I mentioned already, and a municipal complex amount of $50,000 to make up the transfer to reserves. And if the discussion were to come from council or a question at any time tonight about what would I look at doing to move from a 2% recommended increase if council gave direction for, say, a 0% tax increase. One suggestion I would have would be the $20,000 for admin and the $50,000 for municipal complex that's transferred to reserves here on line 193-210-8020. The last line in the admin budget is you could not transfer that to reserves. And you could have a 0% tax rate increase at that point. Knowing that the feasibility study is indicating that the new municipal complex could range from $10 to $15 million all in. So likely there'll be a requirement to borrow if council were to go that direction and do all of those things. So this transfer to reserves could be, it's not going to build up its own reserve all the way to the level that it would pay for a new municipal building. So that would be something that has some flexibility. Any questions from council?
Karen?
So the admin and all the extra costs will all be adjusted the same as every other line will be that's in here. on the contracted services, you now know that that money is with reference to whatever contract we have. It's not for any fees, studies, or anything else. Like that money that's on that line that went from 57.5 down to 7,500. You know that that is the value of whatever contracts we currently have.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
kind of like a contingency, more, not necessarily a specific. But let me just going to scroll to that account here if my computer doesn't tease me here. Oops, let me try that again. I'm just going to go to that line. So that's 10. Yeah, it's basically a contingent amount. So at the moment, it would be if any smaller studies arose or we had to contact a consultant for a specific, like say we wanted to do like a compensation review or something, we'd have that money in that line to do it. In previous years, we've used it for things like the building condition assessment in 2020. And last year we had done an IT review as well. So we had some money there for when those things arise.
Yes, good.
So just in moving forward, I know that it's just basically like on the admin memberships where we budgeted 2, we spent 2,800, but we've come back to 2, but you said it's still going to cover our memberships. It was just because our actual expenses were higher than what we're budgeting. But then at the same time, to say training and seminars, we've gone from 4,000, we spent 371, and we're going to go back to 4. So it's just maybe moving forward to be thinking about specifics so that we are truly budgeting for actual seminars that they're going to attend, trainings that we know we're going to be putting staff through so that we have some sort of an agenda moving forward, so that we can plan for it. Like I know I am fully supportive of the AMCTO trainings that staff want to take, but maybe getting something documented from all staff so that we do have the dollars in there so that we can offer those opportunities to all staff in all the budget lines, not just this one, but just a thought that I know we have money there, but maybe if we could, at some point in time, get together, like not council, but staff get together and go, I'd like to take it, not me. So let's say, for example, one of the staff come and say, you know what, I'd really like to take some sort of an upgrade on a computer program. I think then that way you could budget for it and be prepared for moving forward so that you have those things versus always us just putting a blanket amount in. Because I know that covers just something that comes up, but I do want to ensure that staff also have the ability continually to upgrade their abilities and trainings, because the learning process never stops. And I certainly want to make sure that staff all have the opportunity to take some training. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. Thanks, Karen.
Hopefully the rest of council agree, but I do think it's important to be able to offer all staff the ability to take ongoing training because things are constantly changing. It's never ending.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Andrew, on the line there, 210, 7,300 under the administration legal fees, I note that it went from 8 to 11 and then back to 8. And although it's not a big amount, I'm just wondering, like, if we had to spend 11 this year on legal items, and I think they were all important, why are we going back down then?
Yeah, it's sort of one of those accounts where I guess I would compare it to like snow plowing, where you might have 2 or 3 years with no blizzards and then 1 year with a whole bunch of blizzards. And you could have that with legal requirements as well, where you kind of average out a few years where it's quieter and then 1 year where it's a little busier. Knowing that when I go back and make the adjustment from to the 2% for COLA, there's going to be additional tax revenue there that needs to get reallocated. So we could make a note right now to put some of that to that legal line, so we have a little extra there if we need it. But then also, I guess when we finish up this evening, we'll want to decide if there's like a reserve, like specific reserve, we want to put whatever the difference is into from that first adjustment. So
Yeah.
so if we wanted to
and
change legal to 11 or even 15,000 for 2022, we could do that if you wanted to direct that.
Well, I know, I feel council has done a great job in wanting to always make sure that we're looking at the legal aspects of an issue if it's a bit controversial. And it's kind of to be safe than rather to be safe than sorry. So I think that's been a very legitimate way to go, and I can't see that it should change, but it'll be up to council. I do see your hand there, Karen.
Yeah, I think last year was definitely a unique year, as Andrew says, because I think if you looked at historically, we usually were not too far off. And I mean, we certainly have a little bit of a cushion in the overall budget to ensure that even if it does go over, I don't think the bottom line would impact us that greatly. I'm hopeful that we're going to have a better 2022 year and not so many, bumps in the road, that we get through with that. But
well, unless I hear any
think
change, unless I hear any change, then we'll just leave it as it is. So do we have any other questions then on this section? We'll go. Yes, Karen.
So on the next page, you got into the complex.
Yes.
So do we have a janitorial contract in place for next year?
We have the existing extension that is the janitorial contract was extended. So until it gets retendered, it stands.
Is there a date that that's supposed to happen, or it's just a whenever? Because we didn't do anything with the hall yet, though, right?
There's an interim janitorial contract for the hall as well. Two contracts.
Okay. And then
Yep. Go ahead, Karen.
on the bottom line there, Andrew, on your transfers for the SCBA, is this the final year then? 2022 is the final?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Klaus.
You're on mute.
Same as we had a discussion before in regards to the COLA. Are we moving the administration thing to 2% also?
Yes. It would be all the way.
All the way around. Okay, I just wonder, I thought that, but I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, then let's move on to the next page there. It's under the elections online.
Yep. So in the first draft, I had put in the $18,000 in as one line. So the one small difference here is from the first draft is that I broke it out into the 3 ledger accounts that reflects similar to the 2018 election. So looking back at that, it looks like that should cover the costs of what we expect.
Okay, no questions there then. I guess on to the next page. This is the fire.
Yes, so
yes, Ian.
If council will be okay with it, I need to declare a conflict of interest in regards to any conversation regarding remuneration for any volunteer pay. So if council could discuss that first, or if there is any discussion surrounding it, then that would be great so that I can rejoin the conversation. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And I do see we also have our chief with us here. Welcome, Miles. So I'll let you continue on this one then, Andrew.
Okay, I'll note a couple quick things and then we can take advantage of Miles here if we have any other questions to look at those questions. So in this proposed budget we have here today, we've already discussed, got direction on the COLA amount. One small difference is if you go to the expenditures to general admin, there's the first two lines, 211, 210, 6100 and 211, 210, 6105. So on those two lines, one change you'll see on the next final version is we're going to move $7,500 from the 6105 line up to the 6100 line to reflect the amount paid. I believe Miles can correct me if I'm wrong, but to the, not the lieutenants, but the deputy position, I believe, that he has in place. So that's one thing that we'll see changed in the final. So there won't be a change in the overall of those. Well, there will be by the 2%, but then the other difference would be the 7,500 jumps up. And then I think the rest of it's as presented before, but we can look at that and answer any questions.
Yes, Karen.
So on that note that you just said about the 75 up from the bottom, should you be doing that though? Because the 7,500 is still going to be based off of a valid volunteer exemption under CRA. Like our full-time chief does not get the valid exemption that CRA offers, where the deputy, I'm guessing, will still be a deputy, but under the volunteer system so that it qualifies under the volunteer exemption. And then on the second point on the volunteers, I know that in the past version, by going up to the 77.5, that was due to our increase in complement. But have we also added a COLA increase to ensure that they're staying competitive like we have done in the past? Or is that just the value to increase to the complement? Because we were to add COLA to whatever that value is. So if the complement increased and our true cost is going to be that, we need to ensure that the COLA is added to that figure.
All right. So
Did you follow all that?
yeah, I know what you're saying. So we have the
Yeah.
amount that's there, but you want to just ensure the breakdown
I just
covers
want to
a
make sure
2%
that,
increase.
yeah, that with the numbers increasing, which is fine, that isn't reflective of whatever costs were last year, because you need to ensure that that one still remains getting COLA, because we brought that in place for a couple of years ago to make sure that that line does not lose out on the COLA increases every year as well, because it had been missed before, and we want to make sure that they continue to get COLA the same. So even if the complement increases, make sure that that dollar value has COLA added onto it.
Okay. So we may want to make an adjustment of 2% there. Then.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
So do we have any other questions on this part of it? And no questions, because Miles, it's good that you're with us in case we have any questions, but I guess we don't. And anything else on this one, Andrew?
No, I think when we started the budget process, Miles and I went through this, and he walked me through what he required for resources and what changes he would like to have for his 2022 budget. So I believe that gives him what he needs for his fire department, unless he has any other things that he might want to add to that. For comments to this evening.
No, Andrew, that's all good with there.
Okay, thank you then, Miles. Thank you for this one, Andrew. And then we're going to move on to the next one. And that's, I guess the next page is also the fire building. I was going to make one comment on that page. And I guess it was because of on the line 220, 70, 72, the very first line there, the furnace oil, we're putting into the same amount as the budget. But actually we haven't, the actual is still probably obviously not been, everything been paid yet. But the fuel prices, and it's going to show up further in other places in the budget, but the fuel, we know the fuel prices is escalating very quickly and probably going to continue, especially with what's going on overseas. I'm just wondering if you think this is okay to leave in as the same amount for the furnace oil.
I believe it's okay. There was a bit of a reduction there this year, so I think that leaving it the same will cover the increase in cost.
Okay, I won't ask you the same question when we come to the public works or then. So then I guess we're going to go on from that page. Where's the next page that you wish to go then?
So we could continue on with the police services would be the next department.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, yep.
And essentially we have the OPP contract, and they give us a contract with an estimated number for the year. So that's where the 545 lands for the OPP contract costs. And sort of the other specific question that we have this evening is I've added the $5,000 to the police services capital line at the end for the speed radar tool that was delegated this evening. So council has information on that to make that decision, whether they'd like to make that capital purchase or not.
Yeah, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I have a quick question. I was on a website, a municipality website the other day looking for load restrictions. And I came across a thing where they actually charge residents for alarm calls in regards to policing. Have you heard of that before, Andrew?
I'm not overly familiar with that. It's probably something I have to look into and get back to you on.
Yeah, so it looks like that they have repetitive alarm calls for OPP to a certain residence, and after a certain amount, they actually start to bill for it.
Okay, that could be an advantageous thing to take part in. So I can look into that and follow up and see what we can do with that.
Yes, Karen.
Andrew, give I'll say the fire chief or director of protective services, Pascal Meunier, a call over in Carlton Place, because we do charge for excessive calls. So if you contacted him, he could probably help you out a bit with whatever, just to give you some guidance there. But yeah, for sure. I mean, that's it. I mean, people have alarm systems that constantly were going and the police were going, or whether it be false alarms for fire and stuff, there are charges that other municipalities are doing. Yeah.
All right.
So do you need consensus tonight, right now, Andrew, for the speed radar tool?
Yeah, because we would like to decide if we're going to keep that in our final budget that comes to council to pass or not.
Okay, I'll just go around the way that people are appearing on my screen, and you do move around all the time. So Claus, I'll start off with you there. That's on the speed radar tool.
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And Jeff? And myself. So you have consensus for that to leave it into the budget, Andrew. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Nothing else on the police services. We're moving on then. And the next one is the livestock claims.
Yeah, so this is protection, control, and bylaw, which includes livestock, fence viewing, and bylaw, things like that. So there was a question about fence viewing in 2021. There was nothing to report on fence viewing, so that amount was zero in the actual column. I checked on that, and I think that was the only question for this particular one from the first meeting.
And I have one here on this. Can you explain the the protection, control, and bylaw legal fees. Like, what are these legal fees for?
Yeah, so that actually jumps back to your question about the legal fees under administration. And so we do have some legal fees built into some other areas of township services. And one of the particular items that was looked at in 2021 did relate to bylaw. So I apportioned it to the budget amount from admin.
And the other question I had there was, with this livestock compensation, you know, it was at 12, we budgeted 12, went back to 3, and now we're back up to 12. Was there that big of a drop in 2021 or what?
So yeah, just a quick rundown there. If you look to the top line where it says the revenue for livestock claims, we budget 12 for revenue. And then down at the bottom, we budget 12 for compensation.
Right.
So what happens is when we submit those livestock claims to the province and they pay them out, we receive the money, and then that gets distributed back to the farmer who made the claim. So those two amounts are equal, so that there's no direct difference to the tax rate there between those two lines. If you look up at the top where it says livestock revenue for 2021, it was actually at $6,600. So what happened was some of those were later in the year. And so once we finally received that $6,600 coming in, then there were a few checks that are payable that are going back to as livestock reimbursement. And those are happening in the new year, but that's been adjusted for at the year end. So those amounts will equal out.
Okay, thanks.
And they are lower than the 12, but then it's one of those things where whether you set it at 12 or 6, they're going to be reconciled as well.
Okay, thanks. Karen, please.
With reference to the legal, the 7,300 line, you mentioned that it's apportioned, but if your legal bill comes in, it identifies the legal issue. So should we not be charging it actually there as an actual, not an apportionment? Because your invoice definitely does state the purpose versus doing this apportionment.
Yeah, so I can double check that.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no more questions on this, Andrew, we're going to move on then. Rideau Valley Conservation Levy.
Yeah, so for this one, the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority provides us with an invoice, and that's the amount that's being budgeted there that we would pay to them. Is the $25,000 would cover that.
Jeff?
Sorry, just as a number so we can state it, Andrew, what's the increase just again from last year to this year from RBCA?
So in 2021, it was 23,676.80, and in 2022, they're showing $24,610.57, which is a difference of $933.77 increase.
What's that in a percentage, real quick? Sorry.
Yeah, like one of 24.
Okay.
I guess 4%.
So that's kind of what I just want to make sure that, as we talk about percentages of everything else, and we're talking about ours, so they're basically, it's a 4% increase that they're charging to us now. So just good information, I think, and understanding.
Okay. No further questions then, Andrew. We're moving on, I guess, the next one then. Pits and quarries.
Yeah, so this is Public Works, and we also will have our Public Works manager with us. And this budget probably has some more activity than some of the other ones. So this probably, it covers off the majority of our capital for the year as well. So we'll be able to go through and see that. Just real quickly. There was a question from before about the revenue under 315, 240.90, which is revenue for municipal roads. And that comes from boundary road maintenance that we invoice to other municipalities, and then we receive back from them from work we've done on certain roads. And then
Good to close.
under miscellaneous revenue, we have, I actually put the boundary road note under miscellaneous, but that shouldn't be there. It should be moved up to 240.90. The amount under miscellaneous revenue for 2021 that we received was where we had a surplus snowplow that went on gov deals. So there's some money there that it'll be getting looked at our year end, going through our assets and adjusting for that. And there was a question from the last meeting about the separation of the fuel costs from the carbon tax cost. And that was something we did just to kind of see how that looked going through the year. And the question was, do these have to be separate? And I guess the answer could be no, they could be combined, but I guess we just wanted to keep an eye on that and look at how it affected things. So those were the previous questions. And
I have one. Sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
and then, so going down, we could probably look at the different capital items, and to what you mentioned before, Reeve Dobson, is we may want to add more to the Public Works fuel line, because there would potentially be an increase in their usage of fuel for their vehicles throughout 2022 from the way things are looking at the moment.
So just before we move on to Andrew, I did have a question a minute ago from Claus. Maybe I can take that question now first.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Reeve. Yeah, Andrew, thank you. Pits and quarries and grants, 10,000 budgeted, you spent 26,000, you drop it back down to 10. Any particular reason why you dropped down when you spent 26?
We didn't spend that. That was the revenue.
Ah, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
But the revenue is going to drop back down then, Andrew?
I did leave it as a conservative number. In previous years, we've gotten, one year we got 35,000, another year we got 37,000, but then another year we got 12,000. So I have left that as a conservative at 10,000.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I did mean revenue, I said expenses. So.
Right, yeah, so that's.
Okay.
Okay, you can go on then to the next part, Andrew.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we may want to increase the line for fuel. We could always check with our Public Works manager to see. I hadn't had a chance to discuss that with him. It's just something I was looking at prior to the meeting that I made the note of. So
maybe we can just ask Steve now what his thought is on that.
Yeah.
Welcome there, Steve. Thanks.
Yeah, I believe that's obviously receives a price, so it's not expecting to go down anytime soon here. So that's probably a good idea to increase that.
Karen?
But fuel isn't for several pages, right? Like, am I missing it on this first page?
no, I jumped to page 3 for fuel.
Okay.
It's
At the 65, so you're going to increase it.
yeah,
Okay, but we're going to come back to the other.
absolutely. Yeah.
Claus?
Thanks. It's a question for Steve Rathwell. On the fuel, are you on a special pricing with one of the fuel companies, or are you just paying the market price?
Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's all bulk pricing through from Stinson's is who our supplier is.
Yeah, okay.
So that is who we're through.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And Karen?
So on that note, do we tender that one or do we just continue? Like, does it ever get tendered for best prices? Or is it the only supplier, I guess I should say too?
That's a great question, Counselor. It's not something in my time here we've ever tendered. It's definitely something we can look into just for cost analysis to see what the best going price is. It's definitely a good suggestion for sure.
Yeah, thanks. Ian, please.
Yeah, are we going to discuss capital here? Or are we going to discuss the capital lower at the capital budget summary?
Probably once we finish up with just this fuel item, we could go to capital.
Thanks.
So do you want to just come up with the figure of how much you're going to increase and have it in the next draft for us then, Andrew?
Yeah, I was going to suggest increasing it by 15,000 to a total of 80,000.
Okay, just to be clear then, I'll just quickly go around and make sure that that's okay. So Claus? Jeff? Ian? And Karen?
Yep.
And myself. Okay, you've got that, Andrew. So then we kind of jumped ahead there, but if you want to go back and then we'll catch up and then move forward.
Okay, Steven's been providing me with all these different capital projects and capital information and things that he's got an outlook for 2022. We've discussed them and we've put them into the budget here. So it'd be maybe great to start with if you have any capital questions that he could give you some details on.
Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew and Reeve Dobson. Mr. Rothwell, I got a couple questions for you, I guess. First being the half ton. I know that we didn't get one last year, but I'm just wondering, is that something that we could look at, like getting a EV one?
That's something I was definitely considering. It's definitely an option that we can definitely look at.
We can do. It's maybe a little harder for the township to. I think we should do everything we can to help with climate change anyway. So if we can get it, if there is an EV one, I'd be interested to see what the pricing is on it. The grader. So is that for a brand new grader or?
That's correct, Counselor. That's the cost for a new grader.
And that is still accurate?
Sorry?
That number is still accurate? Like I know the equipment needs, everything else it's hard to get stuff, so.
Yeah, so when we completed our roads need study, they were putting in about 350. It's roughly around 400 there now.
And I guess my last thing is the covered storage building. Is that something that we could put on the back burner for 1 year, considering we're going through the whole process of the buildings and everything else until we have that cemented?
Councilor, that's definitely something that could happen. It's obviously cold storage. It just, obviously the equipment's going to be sitting outside longer, but if that's how council wishes to move forward, then we can absolutely accommodate that.
I think it might be a good idea to, until we have a real solid plan of what we're doing. Maybe it's easier to add a bay or two onto the existing building that we're looking at. Thank you.
Okay, so back to that first question of yours there, Ian, and maybe this is for Andrew, I guess, or Steve. If we were going to look at getting a different type of half ton and getting one that was more suitable for the climate change and so on, I do recall a program from the county that was, were they not offering each municipality $5,000 for each truck that you may get in that type of a truck, or what? Was there not a $5,000 donation maybe from the county for that?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there is. And before we tendered that out for an EV, we would definitely verify that so that could be part of the way it was paid for.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure it was $5,000 per vehicle. If any municipality wanted to do that. Ian, did you want to, yes, Ian?
Yeah, can I have another follow-up question if that's all right, Reeve?
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I think the county should pay for at least half, if not 3/4. I'm all in for that. So if our reps could just kind of push that a little bit, that'd be perfect. And the Code Road, I forgot to ask you, the second section, that's for the whole thing, Mr. Rothwell?
That's correct. That'd be the 2.6 gravel road upgrade to surface treated.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'd like to see that.
Anything else on this? Yes, Jeff?
I guess for the back end of the Code Road, I obviously I want to see the Code Road looked at and upgraded. My curiosity's sake is that really that's coming right out of our reserves? So is that a big chunk out of the reserves that, is going to make it difficult to re-get back into where we're going with our strategy for reserves? And also, is it something where Code Road is a road that we might be able to look at over the next 5 years to do the whole road? Because right now the service route we're doing is only a short-term fix. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. Where we might be looking at having to do that whole entire road, and we might have opportunities for grants or funding to help with that. So is there an offset there? I just want to make sure we're, I guess, doing it the most cost-effective way, and not just to get it done right now, as much as I'd like to see Code Road get those upgrades. If Steve could.
So on the first section, the existing surface treated, it's obviously a maintenance program we're doing on that. It's a 5 to 7 year single anticipated. So there's definitely at some point in the near future that part is going to have to be rehabbed, whether it's in 5 years or it's in 10 years, depending on how the movement of the road structure is. I can't definitively say when that will be, but I would put it higher in the, probably the 8 year is more likely on that one.
So I guess the follow-up, I guess that side of it, the big chunk is that's coming out of our reserves, the back end of it, right? The 90,000 as part of our roads need, we want to make sure we're doing that uplift to keep the next 5 to 7 years. But the back end of it coming out of our reserves, is that fundable? Is that the right move, or is there a better long-term plan that could be done?
That's towards me. That's
Yeah.
definitely, that's a loaded question, I guess. It's definitely a road that's identified on many instances of being a very highly traveled road. There's been a lot of residential buildup on that road. The one thing that goes for that road that you see a lot of municipalities upgrade gravel roads is, does it connect to existing hard surfaces roads? And that's a check mark for that road as well. It does have a high average daily traffic count, as we've seen in reports in the past. So it's definitely a road that would qualify, in my opinion, to be upgraded at some point. I will agree it is a high cost at this point, but it's definitely doable. If council wishes to spend that money out of the reserves, it's something that could definitely be done.
All right, thanks, Steve.
No problem.
Any other questions on this? Okay, so is there any loose ends that need to be settled here then? We had some discussion on the storage building, waiting for another year for that. I guess unless somebody wants to bring that forward and we'll get consensus, we'll move on. Karen?
I'd bring it forward because I think we need to get decisions made about our expansion, what needs to be done, not keep putting it off because it's been in discussions long enough. And I mean, to put 200,000 into a covered building that, I think we do need to move forward on what we need to do on the, whether it's do the renovations like that study told us, or whether it is go to the 22 acres. But I think the renovation report that was brought to us shows us what we need to do, what we can do. So I'm not sure spending the 200,000 this year is what's best. But I mean, I do think this council needs to also then move forward in getting that renovation process into place with new builds, et cetera, based off the report we've got versus waiting.
Well, for me, I think the big issue there is also like space. I mean, depending on what we decide to do, and I 100% agree, we better decide sooner than later. We have to decide sooner than later, but depending on what we do decide might depend on where that building would be placed, or as it also was pointed out, that could it become an add-on to the new building that we might put up? So, you know, that I guess you've put it on the onto the agenda enough, Karen, that I think I'd like to just go around and get consensus or not. So the consensus that I'm going to be asking for here then is that should we be putting the storage building cost of $200,000, putting it, deferring that, and I say deferring it because, as it's been pointed out, it's going to mean another more year of our equipment being out. But I guess the question is then, should we be deferring that cost until next year? So before I go around and get consensus, I saw one hand, Claus.
Okay, thanks, Rafe. Question for Steve. The storage building, it's a coverall building, correct?
That's correct.
The coverall building you're looking at thinking again, can it be transported? Like if we put it up, can we take it down in a couple of years' time and move it to another site?
Well, it's similar to what we have existing. So you have a poured concrete foundation. So I mean, I guess you could move the trusses, but the foundation itself is anchored in.
It's anchored in.
Yeah.
Okay. My second concern then is, and a question for you, Steve, is that you mentioned that it'd be another year of having equipment sitting outside, and that's something that's doesn't really resonate very well with me. This equipment sitting outside due to weather conditions that we've had, you know, this summer or this winter. What's your thoughts of leaving the equipment sitting outside for another year?
It's a tough question. Is it great to do that to equipment? No. Has it been done in the past? Yes. It's not a great answer for you, I guess, but it has happened in the past, and it does happen in other municipalities where some are unfortunately left outside.
Yeah. On that note, my answer would be, would we go ahead with the storage building?
And my thought there about what I said a minute ago about space is that, like, if I knew, if I could look into a crystal ball and know that next year we were going to still go ahead and do a coverall, a storage building, then I'd be saying we should choose the place and put it up, because I agree that I'd like to see it go up. But if there's a chance that we're going to decide that we could put an add-on to the new building, Public Works building, if we could do that, then I guess that building, I guess this question is for you, Steve, then that building, then that would become a heated building, right? Whereas if you were looking at a storage building, like this storage building you're looking at is obviously just, it gets the equipment out of the elements. But as somebody mentioned, I think it was you, Ian, mentioned that if there was a possibility of an add-on to the new Public Works building, if that's what we choose to do, then that would become a heated building. Would it? That's question is for you there for now, Steve, and then I'll go to you, Ian.
Yeah, I believe that's right. In the feasibility study, we're obviously looking at our bays to make sure that we have as much equipment in a heated facility as we can. So it was definitely a consideration during feasibility discussions with our consultant.
Yeah, because the other thing is like, well, I guess obviously the other advantage of having that equipment in a heated building is that they would be in place to be able to be worked on and not have to be moved or anything. Ian, I'll go to you, and then I'm going to try to get consensus on this issue or not. So Ian, please.
So maybe as a way to bind everything together, because I think the council's a little bit split on it. I'm going to propose that we leave the $200,000 in the budget, but it not be spent until authorized by council based on the decision for the new building. That makes sense?
It certainly makes sense to me. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, so that would go along with our procurement for sure. So staff could even tender it, and if results came back, council would have to approve any purchase on this line item. So that's definitely in line with what Councillor Straight's suggesting, I feel.
Okay, so I don't necessarily think we need consensus now then, if we're going to be leaving this in the budget for now. I don't think I need to ask for any consensus there. Yes, Ian?
Because if we leave it in the budget and a month or 2 months from now, we decide to go ahead with the building for public works and the fire department, then that $200,000 can just be either go back to reserves or it can be applied to the building.
And I'm glad to hear you say in the month or two.
Yeah. Well, if Steve has any chance of building a building, this year, he probably have to initialize or give the tender to someone by the end of June.
Yeah. And it's still a bit late putting tenders out, so.
Yep.
Okay, then we're going to move, yes, Andrew.
I think we should be clear, though, we're not putting any resources into this budget for a new public works fire building. That would be like a $7 or $8 million budget line that we're not including. So,
Yeah,
so we won't be proceeding down that path with the actual construction in 2022. If anything, we'd be planning towards that next step, but not to see it go up in 2022. This the way the budget reads now.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's clear.
Okay. And then just so I'm clear, council would like to leave code road section number 2 in the budget as well?
Yep.
Okay.
So now, do you have anything else from Public Works then, Andrew?
I think I have the direction I need, unless council has any further direction to add beyond that.
Okay, and anything else from you, Steve, then?
Well, nothing further from me. This direction's great.
Okay. All right, then I think we're ready to move away from Public Works for now.
All right, so we're gonna look at water and sewer next, I guess.
Yep.
All right.
So we bypassed all the vehicles and all that sort of stuff too, right? When you say public works, not just that one page?
No, if there's questions on any of the Public Works at all, I think the way we're doing it is Andrew's answered any questions that we had, and then we open it up. So if there's further questions on any part of this Public Works, no, we do it first, Karen. So if you have a question, and then maybe I think I saw another question for Claus. So Karen, please.
It's nothing major. It's just that on the page with reference to right below your maintenance fuel, where whatever reason somebody wanted the carbon tax distinguished, I don't know whether we truly need to keep having Andrew cut that portion out to put into it. Like, is there a reason? Does council see still a reason for, instead of just charging all the fuel under the one line, that he has to keep charging out the carbon portion of it? I know it was in the past
You want
council.
to
A
respond
past
to that?
council wanted it done this way, but is there truly a way? We know come April 1st, it's coming into place.
Ian?
I think it was always just put on there as a way for people to recognize how much extra was being charged through carbon tax. That's all it was. So makes life easier for Andrew. I don't personally see any reason why we have to see it. It's part of what's going to happen. So.
Okay, Claude's next.
Yeah, sorry, River, just wondering, after Public Works, was it not streetlights in airport?
Yeah, we're still on the public works, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I said it
we're
was
still
nothing
on-
major. It's just like, it's coming into place. There's not much we can do. Is there a real reason to have it as a separate line? It's okay.
I don't think we need-
So Andrew, I have a couple of comment questions regarding the public works here. And maybe this question is directed more to you, Steve, and that's when it comes to culvert purchases, I know that I assume that you like to maybe purchase culverts every year so that we always have enough. I think that's what we do at the county, but I guess the question is, do we cost sharing with the county at all or anyone on culverts? Because, they add up as an expense. And then the other thing is, I guess my question at the same time would be about cost sharing regarding the salt supply. I know we had been cost sharing with the county on the salt. So the question is, are we still doing the cost sharing with the county on culvert purchases, salt supply, and for that matter, stone dust supply? So that question is for either you, Andrew, or Steve.
Yeah, I can take that. So culvert supply, Montague Township, we just go with the 3 quote system, get our best value, and we bulk buy to ensure that we're getting the best price that we can possibly get. Going forward with the county, their scale of culverts are usually quite a bit larger, and sometimes the suppliers that we use don't supply these suppliers that the county's using, so there's not going to always be consistency there. So there's no cross there. For the salt supply, we did just approve the salt tender, I believe it was early last year, as a joint tender throughout the county, and we could get revenue back from Lanark County for purchasing and using our salt. For stone dust, that contract is expired as of this year, and staff, once budget's approved, will be tendering out for salt supply on that. And Lanark Highlands has asked to be a part of ours as well. So that will be one that we're trying to get as many people on board to up the volume.
Okay, thank you. And I have one last question on the public works, and that is on the line 315 246 7192, the paved weed control. So I see that in 21 it was 5,000. We spent 3, and it's going to 17. So what is that big increase for again? And
So
I suspect that it's for more spraying, but maybe I'll leave the question with you for now.
Thanks, Steve. So yeah, what staff has done with the weed spraying is we've completed audits on where we've sprayed in the past. And it's been very localized areas where we've been spraying. It's been kind of all 4 quadrants of the municipality, with little strategic planning on how we're going to actually solve this issue. So what staff has done here is put in for the northern part of the township from Roger Stevens North. These roads, based on our audit reports from last year, will be getting sprayed with boom spraying and spot spraying to make sure that we can try and get this weed under control. So we are putting more money in here and trying to get a more aggressive approach at getting rid of this noxious weed.
Yeah, I guess my opinion about the whole idea about spraying, whether it be boom or spot, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, because I was quite involved in the discussions and decisions and so on at the county level when it came to their integrated, what we call the integrated management plan to do with noxious weeds. And like, it seems like we're spraying more than we had before, and we're spending more money on spraying than we had before. And yet at the county, when we started our integrated management plan, it was, I will say, it was the most controversial issue that I've dealt with at the county in 15 years. And we had hundreds and thousands of emails sent to us, and we were hounded for years. And but I will compliment the county in this case that we had a really good integrated management plan, which basically meant that we were going to do everything possible to do less spraying than more. And that was going to be like plant seeding along the roadways, planting, putting in other plants and other seeds, which would help mitigate the problem and get rid of some of the noxious weeds. It was also going to be mowing, and I realized that there's only a really small number of times or days that you can actually mow that's effective. I realized that, but they still watched for that and did as much as they could on the proper 1 or 2 weeks is all it is in the year. It was also hand picking. It was volunteer work. It was bringing forward the where people could just like picking the garbage along the roads. I forget what the program is called, but anyways, there's a name for it. People were able to go through the county and get proper gloves, proper equipment to, oh yes, it was called Adopt a Road. So it was called the same thing as Adopt a Road, meaning picking the garbage along the roads, but this was Adopt a Road, a certain number of kilometers along a road, and community groups would come together and do their own picking. So it was really an in-depth integrated management plan, and it has been extremely successful. So I guess one of my few questions in this whole budget is how we're handling the whole climate issue and the spraying issue. So that's my comment.
Yeah, I think obviously with everything, we try and take an environmental approach. To be honest, staff feels, I strongly feel we're losing this battle. I mean, if you drive our roadsides, they're filled with the noxious weeds. And I've got many calls throughout the summer asking why their road was not sprayed, requesting to be put on the list for the following year. I definitely agree that we need to look forward when we get this under control and fill our ditch lines with as many seeds, and that is going to ensure that this does not come back. But eradication is the first thing we have to do. And unfortunately, that is the best solution, is the spraying at this time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that do call and question it, they don't actually realize that there are all of these other things that we can also be doing. And I know that like at the county there, I think one of the, although as you say, we need to do more boom spraying to at least get on top of it. I know at the time when because we were doing less and less spraying, we were able to actually hire students, and they were also able to help with a lot of the picking. But I would hope that if we're going to start doing this, that we could see this plan put in place, that we would see less and less spraying. We went from in the same situation, spraying a lot, and then now we're not spraying near as much. Anyways, just my comments. So no further questions on or comments then on Public Works? Then moving on to the streetlights.
So streetlights, we've left the budget the same as the previous year. And another one of those items where sometimes the maintenance can be a little higher one year than the next. So we left that at 2,000. And the streetlight amount of billing is tied to electricity cost, and it was a little over in 2021, but not necessarily to the degree that I'd made a change to the budget.
Okay, Claus?
Thanks, Reeve. My same old question. Are we going to investigate putting up new street lights anywhere?
Who's that question for?
I can take that.
I guess, or Steve. Yes,
Yeah,
sorry, Reeve. Question to Steve.
Staff was directed in 2021 to complete a report. We completed that report, and the direction provided by council was to not install any additional streetlights at this time.
So that's where we're
Okay.
staying. Okay.
Okay, and then I guess we're moving on.
A question though, Bill?
Pardon me? Oh, yes, did you have,
So-
yes, Karen, sorry.
Andrew, the change in the maintenance and the materials and maintenance, was that materials that had to be bought, or is it maintenance that have been done on our new street lights that we purchased? Because didn't we put the new LEDs or whatever in that were supposed to be more cost effective for us under a program that we had?
That's correct. There was LEDs purchased and installed in, I believe it was 2018, I want to say.
Mhm.
But there was maintenance on those during 2021.
So do we think that that's an ongoing, like an annual maintenance that we do need to up it? Or is that just a one-off that we had a double, almost double in this one year?
I'm hoping so. Like the previous year, it was $687, and the year before that it was $570. But then the year before that it was $3,300. So it's sort of another one of those averaging ones where, if you look at it over a few years, you're on par.
Anything else on streetlights? Okay, then we're going to move on, but Steve, if you don't mind, I apologize to council and staff for this. I'm just going to mention one more thing about what I was talking about with the spraying. And that is that if we've accepted then that we're going to spend, quite a bit more money and do a lot more of that, then I just want to make sure that the public is aware of what we're doing, and that the public, because the way that it was handled at the county was that if you don't want your road sprayed, then you have an opportunity, first of all, to put up a sign that you get, that in the county's case, you get from the county, but in our case, you'd get from us. But you get to put up a sign, but also those same people were then encouraged to look after their own section in front of their residence or their property. So like, it's one thing to say, well, I don't want my road to be sprayed, but it's also you have to step up to the plate and do the work. So I'm not sure how educated the residents of Montague is regarding those types of policies, but I do think that it needs to be looked at, and maybe at least the residents become aware of what they can and can't do. Thanks. Okay, so then we're moving on, I guess, to the next part is the water and sewer.
Airport.
Oh, sorry, what did I miss? Yes,
Airport.
Karen.
It's the airport.
Oh, yes. Well, that's on the other side here. I keep forgetting to change my page.
Turn the page.
The airport is the next one. Yeah. Anything on the airport? Karen?
So,
Yep.
Andrew, was that Smith Falls hasn't invoiced us for our share of any costs? Is that why they're still sitting with no actual for 2021?
Let me just check here. Yeah, they have, but I'm going to be making a year-end adjustment for that, and it was $12,461 combined from the town this year for 2021.
Between the capital and the operational?
That's right. So, and that agreement is being renegotiated, but not complete yet. So I haven't made any specific changes to these budget lines for 2022.
Sounds good.
Okay, Karen?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Water sewer?
Okay, so water and sewer, the town had confirmed their 2% increase that they passed by bylaw, and that's reflected here in the water and sewer budget, which is a user pay system. So you see that at the bottom of the accounts, it balances out. There is no surplus or deficit in the budget. The revenues will cover the expenditures the way it's presented.
See no further questions on this one then, Andrew?
Okay.
One
Yes,
question,
Jen?
sorry.
Yep.
Maybe it's because it's under Rito, I don't know, but where it says sewer connections Adirano. Just wondering with reference to the two service lots that are now on King Street, the corner of King and Rito. We don't get any charges for those? Is that all went to the property owner, correct? So there was a lot on the corner of Rito and King that got severed to two properties. And I know that they are fully serviced lots that were up for sale, that we had our, one of our committees, variance committee maybe had some discussions going on. So but we don't have any of that, right? Like, because of the fact that it's all borne by the property owner. There's no
That's correct,
charges to
Counselor.
us. Correct? Okay, all good. Thank you. Just making sure there was no surprises. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess the next is the stewardship recycling grant page.
Yes, so yeah, for the waste management, when we budgeted this, went through this with our public works manager, and we've indicated a couple of new amounts in there for 2022 that have to do with the drop-off revenue and the drop-off costs. And other than that, the budget is quite similar to the previous year. There is indexing that occurs on our contracts for waste and recycling collection each year. And we've factored that into the budget as well for the waste collection. So it should be aligned.
Karen?
Those the large item days that you call drop off?
Pardon me? So
When you call it drop off, are you talking about the large item days that we do?
yeah, and I believe it's going to coordinate with how the new silver sticker program is working and the roadside component of that, but our public works manager can clarify that.
Yeah, that's right. So the special drop-off day is actually no longer
Right.
Listed as the drop-off. It'll be a pickup in 2022.
At curbside.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So anything else on waste management? See no questions on that, then Andrew, on
Thanks.
to social services.
Okay, so there's a few lines to this one. One is for the annual cemetery amounts that is $2,400, which matches up with the previous year. And I had gotten some correspondence from one of those churches that there's one cemetery, I believe they're no longer maintaining, so that probably will be reduced by one donation. Is the idea there. There was an amount of 1,000 left in for bursaries. If those arise, that's the same as the previous year. And under miscellaneous donations, I'd shown some increase there in the first draft of the budget. And we're going to be having, like we did last year, delegations coming from people who applied to our donations advertisement that we had in the fall that follows our policy. And the suggestion there is that we have 12,500 available for council to decide upon based on recommendations and based on the delegations that come from those groups. Hopefully at the next couple council meetings, we'll be hearing from them. So if we leave this in the budget, then it's there if council chooses to approve those with those groups or not.
Okay. I don't see any questions on this then, Andrew. Moving on then, I guess, to the recreation. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so in recreation, we have a couple capital items, some fencing at Rosedale Hall to help with the safety of the playground area and the roadway. The paddling launch that is actually money that was received from the county that was a carryover due to the timing in the fall and the weather, and preparing for that. And the tail end of the recreation feasibility study, which was done in 2021, but is still to be brought back as a final report. It was brought as a first draft to council, so we need to tidy that up. So there's an amount available there for consulting, and there'd be an amount used from the development charges to go towards the cost sharing for Smiths Falls, and a transfer to reserves of 50,000, which in discussion with Councillor Carroll, we noted that I need to update my reserve spreadsheet to reflect that as well, which I would do for the final presentation of the budget, April 5th. And there is the $5,000 once again in there for events for the Recreation Committee.
Did Andrew, did we decide 100% that we were going to be fencing Rosedale Hall? I know it was a discussion, but was there a decision made?
It was, I believe, asked to be part of the budget presentation, so council could give direction to remove that now if that wasn't required. I believe it was part of our budget discussion last year, maybe, as well.
So, like, I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, are we talking about which part of the property are we talking about? Are we talking about the putting up a $12,000 fence along the playscape there, or what are we talking about here? I do see a hand there, Klaus.
Yeah, thanks, Reeve. We basically just talked about it. There was nothing really concrete decided. I don't think we even went out and got some pricing on it, or maybe Steve did get some pricing, roughly. But from what I understand, the fencing was going to go from the property line right behind the hall all the way around the play structure and out to the road. It's going to be quite a massive fence, but nothing was really concretely done that I recall.
I didn't think that we had moved it forward. I didn't think council had moved this issue forward enough to be in our budget moving forward, but that's why I'm asking the question. Karen?
If council chooses to go forward with fencing, I think we should be looking into like a Trillium grant or something to assist. And the component of the safety of the children running to the road because of the play structure. The component too about the neighboring and whatever needs to be addressed in how to get that grant. I think that would be the optional way to go for the fencing. Should it probably cost more than the 12,000 to do it? Because I mean, if we want to do it, like, let's apply and do the whole thing, shoot match around to do it properly so that it does address all of it. And then that way, then if we decide we're going to expand to do some additional on the extra grassed area, it's covered as well. So I think that's how we should look at is a Trillium grant, which is available actually right now, that's out there. And then further down, we have the post office roof. Is that something as well that we could be doing through a grant? Like, there's got to be, I know it's not a lot of money, but there's still, it's something we could be looking at.
Well, I seem to agree that I don't think that we're in a position right now to move forward and put $12,000 into a fence for more than one reason, because I think at the last committee meeting of the recreation, there were discussions of other things that they may be looking at doing outside. And so until we get that settled, I think we need to look at the overall fencing issue a little closer. And I'm not saying that we did the wrong thing by putting the playscape in. I think it was one of the best amounts of money spent. As we all know, lots of kids are using it, but we did the playscape, and now we're doing the fence because of the playscape and kids playing there and so on. And I don't think we have a really clear plan yet, but I think we definitely need discussion on it. I did see your hand, Jeff, there. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what all you're saying as far as the fencing goes. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we need to put that in the budget. The other thing was that we did have another security options we had discussed that we were waiting back, like, I want to say 8 months ago, for looking for the quotes and everything else for that. And we haven't got any of that back yet, and it's not in this budget. So I'm a little bit confused maybe on that side of it. Is that's the one that we had actually said, let's go ahead and go and do it, but we haven't gotten anything back for yet. So I don't know how much we can comment on that, but I mean, it's maybe we can't take that out, but we should be maybe leaving in half of that for what I'm discussing, and hopefully that comes back.
Yes, Andrew.
So I apologize. Where I put fencing, I'm concerned maybe that incorporated also those security measures that are part of that pricing in the section of fence. So much like the storage building, if we wanted to leave that in there, so it's available, knowing that nothing will take place until a report is brought to council for discussion to clarify what amounts, how much, and what the direction of council is to proceed or not proceed with that. Otherwise, we wouldn't go ahead with anything until that came before council.
Yes, Ian.
Yeah, so if we proceed that way and then we decide not to do it, then that money will just get transferred to the reserves in the recreation.
Right.
That would be,
Okay, I think the same as before. I don't think we need to do a consensus here. We're going to leave it in the budget, and then we're safe and we will move forward. And but as I said again before, we definitely need more discussion on this. So we don't need to make any consensus there, Andrew, I don't think.
Okay.
And I don't see any other further questions on this overall recreation report, except for you, Karen.
Well, I mentioned about the post office roof. I know it's got to be done, but that's where I was wondering whether this stuff can be done through a grant application. Can we not make a grant application to cover this, to cover the fencing, to cover the security, and get what we need, what's going to work at a location, that doesn't have internet service and all these other things to make sure.
So I think, Karen, to answer your question, we're going to leave it in the budget. And I think that what you're bringing up is guaranteed we should do. We should be looking at funding. These are a couple of projects that we could get funding for maybe, but I guess if we're going to leave it in the budget, for now it's there. We can go ahead, our staff can go ahead, and I think we're encouraging our staff then to go ahead and see if we can get some funding regarding these two projects.
Okay.
Claus, you had a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment in regards to funding. Would be able to qualify for a heritage funding since it's the old replica of the original post office from Roseville. I guess it's just a question for Andrew or something to look into.
So we'll make note of that.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, then we're going to move on. I think we've got everything done on the recreation part of it. The next, I believe, is the library.
Yeah, and for the library, the librarians, they walk us through that we apply for that provincial library grant each year. It's what they can apply for. It turns out to be that $6,775 mark. And then the amount that we pay to the Merrickville Library Board and the Smiths Falls Library Board are the amounts that they request in writing each year from the township. And they have confirmed those amounts in writing again for this year. The increase from 8,200 to 8,300 is the amount specified by the Merrickville Library, but from the librarian. And just one other note for council is that the Smiths Falls Library has requested that we consider reviewing or updating the library agreement, which I believe is, they said getting close to maybe being about 40 years old. So maybe from the early 80s. So that's something that we may get back to you with more information on here as the year progresses.
Claus, and then Ian.
Thanks, Steve. Question, Andrew, on the library, Ontario Library grants, can we not get a grant per library, or is that the total grant for both libraries?
I believe that's probably the maximum. It's like called the provincial library, like PLOG. I'm trying to remember what it stands for. Operating grant. I can ask them that and find out right away.
Yeah, because I think it should be per library, $6,800 per library. We're servicing two different locations on the opposite ends of the township.
Right. Yeah. Whether it's per township or per library, I can find that out.
Ian?
Yeah, I know that last year, or I think it was last year, maybe the year before that, before all this COVID mess started, there was interest from, I know, people at Smith Falls Library potentially putting on a summer school type stuff at Rosedale Hall for some kids that were in Montague Township. Is that something that council would have any interest in setting some money aside so that if the Smith Falls and Merrickville Library, if they want to combine, or Smith Falls wants to do it on their own, however that might be at the end of the day, we put some money together or aside so that they could actually maybe put a program together for children during the summertime.
Karen?
Andrew, can you tell us whether or not the library applied for that money? Because that's, I think, the direction we gave them last year.
For the events that you're like the program that we're talking about.
Yep.
They haven't informed me of that. I'd have to double check with them to find that out.
Is there money available for that? Is there a grant that's available for that?
For a library-based event?
Well, something, they were talking about putting on something at the Rosedale Hall for like a summer camp type of thing for some kids.
There may be, I'd have to explore this.
All right.
And I suppose they'd probably be fairly aware of those too. They might be able to help me find that out quickly. Through
Thank you.
Karen?
Just a quick question, Andrew, on the Merrickville Library. I know you say that they tell you 8,300 is this year, but we paid them more last year. So why would they not be looking for at least what we paid them last year?
That includes the $110 to our library board member, just added on top of the, so I probably could add that to that budget line. Another $110.
So we pay our library board members?
Yeah, there's one for each library. And that's in our
That's
compensation
like,
bylaw.
yeah.
It's an
That's just
annual
for-
one.
The reason I ask is because we don't pay our rec committee people. I didn't
Right.
realize that we were paying the library board people.
Yeah, it's laid out in the policy where you see like livestock evaluators and things like that.
Perhaps council can have this brought back then so that we could have a discussion.
Jeff?
We did talk about that a couple of years, because Karen, you brought that, Councilor Jennings, you brought that up before a couple of years ago, and I think it was even talked about at the rec committee. I'd always have to go back and try to remember what the discussion was, and maybe some of the rec committee members might remember if we bring it back to them or not, if there was an option for that, or if they said they were not interested at that time, or I can't remember. Maybe Councilor Stray remembers. Remember, we did talk about it. It was something we talked about a couple of years ago. Anybody?
Yeah.
can remember?
Yes, Ian.
Yeah, we did actually talk about it, and we decided that the rec committee we weren't going to pay for that position, I do believe. But I kind of agree that we should kind of bring it back, because $110, really at today's day and age, isn't really a lot of money for people that are running in. I don't know how many meetings they have at the library, but it'd be nice to at least cover some of the fuel and stuff like that, in my opinion, anyway. So I wouldn't mind having discussions around it.
Okay, we can leave that with their staff, I think. At least to bring that forward.
I've made note of that.
Okay, then we're going to move on to the planning building.
So when we look at planning and building, you notice right away that building permit revenue is quite high in 2021, so that worked out well. I've left it as a conservative amount for 2022 because I believe that it's a fair way to have that in there, so that we just don't presume that it's going to be that high every year. And I've made an increase in the development charge revenue as well, based on our fees, and still a conservative number of new construction, but higher than the 40,000 that we budgeted last year, seeing that there was an increase in revenue in 2021. The line you see that I used 811-200-5120. I put in an amount for shared services there for planning, where we're exploring that with the town of Smiths Falls, based on our current status with the township and our use of a planning consultant moving forward in March. I would recommend that we remove the 43,000 revenue potential from that line, and also remove $43,000 from the building and planning remuneration line for that part, and then also move the balance of $32,000 down to the consulting line, which is 811-210-7232, based on the possibility that the Montague's interim planner may be used moving into 2022, because we do not at this time have a guaranteed expectation that we can fill a staff planning position under the line of remuneration for this year.
Okay, Ian was first, and then Karen.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew. The only thing I want to say is that I hope you're wrong about the revenue part. I hope it actually continues to grow. So other than that, hopefully with some of these subdivisions and everything else that people are talking about, and still, there's a pretty high level of involvement within the township, so I'm hoping that the revenue stream continues to grow within the township, but so thanks for everything you've done.
Karen?
So, you said shared services planning use 315. So you want me to go and find an account number that says 315?
No, that, I just used a placeholder for that because it was presented in the first draft and it was still being explored, that we were hoping that there'd be a commitment from another municipality to share the cost of a planner 50-50. And at this time, it does not appear that that's going to be able to be followed through on. So,
Okay,
so
so-
that I would delete that amount in the final budget and delete a corresponding amount in the expenses.
Yes, Karen?
So in the bottom, like in the 811, 210, 60, 100, which is strictly building, you put the planner money into that. So that 128.5 you said is going to be dropped by 43,000. Correct?
Right.
And then you're going to then you're going to take 3,200 and put it in under the 811, 210, 72, 32 for consulting.
So 32,000. Right.
So the line of 6,100, which is at 128.5, is going to have 43,000 taken out of it.
Mhm.
And then you're going to add in 32,000 to the 7232.
No, I'm just going to move it down from line 6,100 down to line 7232. So there'll be no net difference.
So, but the 128.5 is going to drop by the 43 and 32. So a total of like 75,000. Right?
Yes, that one's going to reduce by 75.
Okay.
But part of it's going to be offset by revenue and part of it's going to be offset down to consulting.
Well, it's just that this is building and we have to keep planning totally separate. Remember, we're distinguishing because we need planning. So planning wages, planning revenue, you've got that separate. And then, so this is now separate because you do have the 811 for planning under consulting. So if we were to hire a position in 2022, maybe not a planner, but let's say, for example, council decides that we look at a junior planner or something, we would still need a line for salaries under planning.
Yes,
Not
that's an
the
excellent point.
Sorry,
Yeah. That's an excellent point. I should add a line for that.
but
Yeah.
under planning, not under building. Like you'll have to create an
Yes.
account for wages there
Right. Yes.
because although we're not going to be cost sharing with Smith Falls, we might be doing something on our own as well. So if that's the case, we would need to do something there.
Right. Yeah, so
Okay.
I can make that change.
Andrew, I have a question regarding the cannabis implementation grant there. Was that just a one-time grant? Or was it?
Yeah, yes, that was another amount that gets kicked out by the province and
Yeah,
and so at the end of 2021, that if we see, like, when we look at our surplus, that would be in the surplus.
yeah, but we weren't to expect another grant this year for that, were we?
I'm not aware of one, no.
Yeah, okay, all right, thanks. Okay, I don't see any further questions on the planning part of it, then I think we can move on to the drainage.
Yep, and for drainage, I would just say business as usual. And we have an amount in there for drainage superintendent. And we get some of that amount through a provincial grant. And
Okay, and yeah, I don't see any questions in on this. So then we just have our general pages left, I guess, the summary there, if you wanted to speak to it, and then if we have any other further questions.
Yeah, and the summary is a roll up of all the pages we've just gone through, and it shows that the total revenue equals the total expenditures. Because municipalities, unlike the province or the federal levels of government, are not allowed to run deficits. So shows a zero there, like it did for the budget the year before. And then it shows a prospected possible surplus and for 2021 actual pre being before the year end audit. So it could adjust slightly.
Karen, do you have a question? Yes, Karen.
So I just missed on the building and planning though. The other thing is it didn't note cost like the COLA increase on wages, but all the wage lines and benefit lines will be adjusted to reflect just the 2% that council directed tonight. Right?
It would be all of the different remuneration lines.
Yeah, no, yeah, because it didn't note it. That was all. Sorry. It just didn't say COLA as well in that line. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Okay, now, does council have any questions on the last 2 pages? And so I guess I'm going to go back to you then before we kind of finish up this meeting. I'd like to go back to you there, Steve, if you have any other questions and comments, and then Andrew, but I do see now 2 hands, Jeff, and then to Ian. Jeff? No? Okay, Ian, are you okay?
Yeah, I just one comment, Reed, if you don't mind. Andrew, I guess after you made all the changes
Not at all.
for the summary for the next council budget meeting, can you just show what the actual increases like you did before, like 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever that might be at the end of the day? Just a bit of a range there for us so we see what it looks like, what the impact is per resident, if that's possible. Do you understand?
Yeah, and I guess that my question would be, depending on direction from council at this point, is there an expectation that the next draft of the budget you see would be the final draft that would be presented to be passed? Or would you need to see these changes before that happens?
Karen?
Well, we have one more meeting in March that we could see it and then still have it passed for April, right?
We do have a period where we advertise before the budget's passed. So we would gear it to that. It's like a 20-day timeline. So the next council meeting is a week from today. So you're thinking we could try and show those changes for next on the 15th?
Yep. And then that would still give you like your 20 days to have it then on the agenda for the 5th.
We can work for that.
Okay, Claus?
So
Oh, go
Thanks,
ahead,
Reed.
Andrew, sorry. Go ahead, Andrew. No, just 1 minute, Claus, I'm sorry.
Yep, I'm
I
waiting.
cut Andrew off there. He's not quite finished.
So is that we're planning to sort of settle on what percentage of increase at that March 15th meeting? Is that the idea, or do you want me to bring it back with still with the 2% and what those changes are? Could still leave it at 2% increase.
Yes, there, Karen.
So when you take and do
I
the
guess,
adjustment
Claus,
on,
no, I'll go to you next, Claus. I missed. Yeah, sorry, Karen. I missed Claus. So Claus, and then back to you, Karen.
No, I just want to iterate on Andrew's statement that on the 15th of March, our next council meeting, we can rehash those changes. I think we've discussed them at length quite well. And everyone had some good comments that Andrew can put his proposal forward and get this ratified on the 5th of April and move forward with the 2% increase as suggested by staff. That's all.
Okay, Karen,
So with the changes that council proposed, which is instead of COLA to do 2%, and then whatever changes we put through to say expenses to amend, whatever that percentage it breaks down to, is that not what council's then sort of looking at?
I thought maybe that's what we were looking at, but I don't think it's going to be much off of the 2%.
No.
That's okay. It's to give Andrew direction then to say, if we want to leave it at 2%, then he knows to put the balance into a reserve, I guess. The difference would go to a reserve of some sort. If there was any
Yeah,
difference,
okay.
right? 'Cause
Yep, and I don't think it would hurt just to help Andrew then in his planning. I don't think it would hurt right now then for us to go around and just sort of get a consensus. It's not approving a budget, but it's getting a consensus for the 2%. So if I don't see any opposition to us doing that, then I'll go around the table and ask for this consensus. Claus, I'll start off with you there.
Yes.
And Jeff
That's fine. Yeah.
and Ian
Yeah, that's fine.
and Karen.
yes, for, as long as it goes to
Myself.
reserve, yes.
Well,
And
yeah.
that's-
where else?
And yeah, and that definitely is certainly one of our expectations.
Can we
So
decide
just
though?
before, yes, first though, Andrew, then you do have that consensus. Okay,
Right, so to bring it back with 2% with the difference to reserves.
yes.
Right.
But Karen,
Can we start and look at saying that this additional, whatever additional money is going strictly to these new builds, the renos, whatever is going to be needed, so that we can start and be putting it to a specific project?
Claus,
Yes, I agree with Karen. That's what we did last year.
Jeff,
And it's fine. I mean, I don't think there's going to be an X amount going into the reserves anyways. I mean, we're increasing the gas, of how much gas we're going to have to use, all that kind of stuff. I think we're really just, we did more of an offset, but I mean, that's where I'm trying to do the math in my head real quick there. I don't really see a big difference, but I look forward to maybe that next week having that quick talk, and then we can move it on to getting approved on the 5th. So.
okay. Anything else you need from us, Andrew, right now?
No, I think that's everything.
And Steve, you're still with us? Any other last minute questions and comments?
No, nothing from me, council. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for both of you who's been with us all night, for all the work you've done. And Andrew, you're doing a great job. We're only on our second draft. I can't remember whether it was a municipal budget one time or it was a county. I think it was one of the early county councils. But I think we finally settled on the 10th draft. So you've done a good job to keep it to 2 so far. Anyways, thank you for both of you for that. I have a motion. It was moved by Ian Straight and seconded by Claus Vandermeer that the committee of the whole received the following report, that the second draft of the 2022 budget, and that the following be recommended to council, that the second draft 2022 budget being presented in this report be brought to council for approval at the April 5th, 2022 council meeting. I believe that's what our consensus still is, to hopefully do it on the April 5th. So that's what this budget, or that's what this resolution is saying. Any questions then? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we have no reports of committees, petitions, motions, notice motions, no unfinished business. And I will go to you, Christy, if I see you're on it with us now. Do we have any questions from the public?
I'm just checking. We have no questions from the public.
Okay, thank you then.
Can I ask a question?
No,
Can she tell us how many actually watched tonight for our budget?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
current-
just teasing you, Karen.
It's okay.
Sorry. Currently,
Notice
we
I
have
asked anyway.
we have currently 4 people watching, and it fluctuated over the evening. But mostly it stayed around 4, but it would come and go to 3, 5. There was a couple times when 5 people were watching. The highest we got was 6. So yeah, it fluctuated over the evening. But
And I think I had asked that question last meeting and it was 4 also. So chances are it's hopefully it's not the same for all the time, but certainly the same number. Okay, thanks then, everybody, for all your questions. Council, you did a great job, all the questions, and we got almost everything answered. So we'll look forward to the next meeting. So thanks, everybody. I do have a motion moved by Klaus Vandermeer and second by Jeff Carroll that the special meeting do now adjourn at 8:47 p.m. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, good night, everyone.